I would ask you the last question about today's discussion.
You just said that you already asked the last question. So there's another last question.
Yeah, there is another last question.
They will continue to be our neighbor. We will continue to remain their neighbor. So we have to understand our neighbor better.
Yeah, I agree with you that we can't just one morning get up and take this piece of land and put it somewhere in Europe. No. And then we can have Schengen visa for all of us to roam around. We have to live here.
Absolutely.
And we have to live with them. I welcome you all to our discussion organized by South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance, SIPG, at North-South University. My name is Asif bin Ali, and today I would be talking with our honorable guest, Mr. Shahidul Haque. Mr. Shahidul Haque is a Professorial Fellow at SIPG, North-South University. He also worked as a former Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh, and currently he resides as Bangabandhu Chair, University of Delhi. We invited Mr. Haque to talk about our PM's upcoming visit to India. Mr. Haque, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
What do you think? What is our expectation as of now following this visit?
Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is likely to go to Delhi for a summit meeting with Prime Minister Modi of India. Now, you asked me about expectations. I think let me put it in a different context. I think it's the relationship that we expect, a warm, friendly, constructive relationship between the two countries, which have a long border and a neighbor, and who have helped us in 1971 in our War of Liberation. So I think in terms of expectation, is the friendship, is the warmth, is the relationship and continuity of that.
We need more than friendship, that is the strategical partnership. What do you think, what kind of strategical partnership India and Bangladesh are now working on and could go to the next step?
Our relationship is beyond strategic because of our relationship, because of our history, because the sacrifices both of us made at various stages of our independence. The relationship can't be put into a box saying it is a strategic relationship. It is much beyond strategic relationship. And when we say it's much beyond strategic relationship, it means that we discussed each and every issue, not that all issues are plain and simple. There are complicated issues. There are issues of a nature which doesn't often go very smooth. But it is, as Bangabandhu in 1972 actually described in Kolkata as to how a Bangladesh-India relationship should be seen. He said Bangladesh-India relationship is very special. That means he was saying that, it's the special of the specials, number one, and it's very eternal relationship. So when a relationship is special and eternal, under the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's leadership, certainly it is much beyond strategic.
Over the time, subtle friendship has been built based on bilateral communication, and we have seen some good outcome out of it as well. One of the good outcome is this exchange of enclaves. I mean, nobody could imagine that these two sovereign states, whose entire national identity is based on securing each inch of land, are exchanging land peacefully without any bloodshed.
One of the issues that we mutually settled is the enclave exchange. It's about over 60,000 people in one fine morning made a citizen of a state. And for the last, about 60 years, they were actually stateless. So Bangladesh and India jointly has given citizenship to 60,000 stateless people. It's a big event in the literature of migration. Nobody takes cognizance of it, that it was settled peacefully.
One of the biggest frustration from Bangladesh side is the death of Bangladeshi citizens in the border. And do you think in this current visit, when PM would be going Delhi, this issue would be discussed?
We have a very long border, by the way, and this border is not sort of a border like Europe and others, where people live on the border virtually. It is an issue, big issue for Bangladesh. We have always raised it. I don't think we need any additional mechanism. We have put in place a detailed mechanism. It has been rated by India in terms of zero death on the borderline. Now, also let me point out that this death is not only for Bangladesh. There has been Indian death also on the other side. Both the countries are working hard to bring to a level where there will be no death, and it will be a productive, functioning border.
For many Bangladeshis, it remains one of the most important issue that there should be zero killing in the border. I think no matter what happens, or no matter how complex the situation is there, if we are believing that we are friends, then of course we are supposed to uphold the commitment to make sure zero death in the border.
No, absolutely. I have no dispute on that issue. Indian side is also very sensitive. They were aware of it, and they are also trying their best. Let's work together to make a peaceful neighborhood.
Based on the Indian media reporting, we see that Bangladesh has done a lot for India in terms of ensuring a secure border. And one of the Indian leaders currently said that people of Assam can sleep peacefully because Hasina provided that help.
Is the Chief Minister of Assam.
It's the Chief Minister of Assam. Yeah. But when it comes to sharing some other issues, for example, river, we see a kind of delay in that process.
There are outstanding issues which is yet to be resolved. Tista, I know that's what you need in your mind. Yes, we have an agreement which has been inked, initialed for a long time. It was supposed to be signed in 2011, which has not been. We expect that it should have been signed yesterday, but we also know that India, the way its state structure is, the way it is governed, is much more complicated than our one. In a particular state, which is West Bengal, run by a non-BJP government, is not very keen of allowing the center to implement that Tista projects. We have mentioned that Indian central government, both the previous government of Congress and this government of BJP, has assured government of Bangladesh number of times the Tista agreement will be implemented. And I think one day Tista will be signed, but Tista is not the only river that flows. There are other rivers that we should also start looking at. And that's why the basin-wide management, so you can give, take and give approach in terms of distribution. Our Ganga agreement would be up for reviewing in 2026. Both the government has agreed to do a joint study to see how that sharing has functioned, or how that has an impact on the environment and its utilization. Hopefully, once the joint study comes out, we will be much more informed to take this particular agreement to a beyond 2026.
When it comes to the river sharing, of course, we are discussing about who is getting more water and resources from the river. But do you think we are also thinking about, is river going to be alive if we still consume it the way we are doing it?
That's why in the GRC meeting, one of the two major decisions that has been taken, I can't remember the name of the two rivers, where it has been decided that two countries, I think one is Feni River and
Porshur. Feni and Porshur?
Feni and Porshur. And that the pollution, because these rivers are dying because of the pollution from both sides. No one can blame the other one. So it has been decided that both the government will jointly do to reduce the pollution of these two rivers. When we have a new Ganga Treaty in 2026, I think that would feature out prominently in terms of how you can not only share the water, but how and for what purpose you share the water, and how best it could be utilized, both in terms of people's use, but also in terms of the river's own life. And this is part of the bigger river debates that's taking place, the water debate, the climate debate that's taking place globally, where our Prime Minister is a pioneer in terms of putting forth the climate issues, the water issues, and the river issues. So I'm sure that it will come in the discussion.
Mr. Haque, this time I would like to talk with you regarding Rohingya conflict. And India did some help to some extent, but the help India has given and the expectation that we have, we see a significant amount of difference there. What do you think? Like, should our envoy also brought this issue that how we can get more support from India in the area of diplomacy in order to solve this crisis, especially making sure that the repatriation could happen soon?
Every country has its own national interest and geopolitical issues, and India and China both has a geopolitical issues in that part of the world, whether it is the First World War, Second World War. So we need to put that into context. And unfortunately, the Rohingya are just in the middle of these two big, aspiring, emerging powers in South Asia. Now, India has, as I see and read the Indian policy towards Rohingya, have shifted. The shift where the shift is that India has moved to the center in terms of its responses to the Rohingya issue. Not only, as you have said, they have helped building houses and other things in the northern Rakhine, and also helped financially and materially, but also in the international system, they have shown more logical way of supporting the Rohingya crisis. And now this recently in the Security Council, they have been critical about, for the first time actually, they have been critical about the military regime in Myanmar. So that's how I see it. Now, if you ask me that could it have been a little more stronger? Absolutely, and we continue to do that. In fact, they're one of the countries whom we briefed at the very early stage of this recent exodus, and it has always been in the talking point. So that's there. But we have to take into consideration when we talk about Rohingya, it's not only a humanitarian issue on human rights; it's also a geopolitical issue. And geopolitics overtakes everything when it comes to the states functioning.
I agree with you that when geopolitics comes, then everything takes to the second row, and the geopolitics takes the control of the state.
Along with the geoeconomics.
Along with the geoeconomics. And do you think Bangladesh, as an emerging country, developing country in South Asia, whose economy is about to exceed 1 trillion in next couple of years, have and that kind of arrangement to some extent to focus on the geopolitics and negotiate with India? And since this topic is all about India, so I would be only strict about India issue, about these issue, and make sure that our national interest also remain served in all cost.
Absolutely, no doubt whatsoever. When this government was making its Rohingya policy, it has taken into consideration everything in terms of humanitarian, human rights, and the geopolitics and the geoeconomics. And that's why there are certain things that we have done, including not accepting them as a refugee. We think they are forcefully displaced Myanmar nationals. That was one of the decisions which was guided because of our geopolitical interests. So geopolitical interests predominates everything here also. But this is little different than some of the other countries because of our 1971 experience. We had 10 million people going to India and taking shelter, and at the end of everything, these people returned. Now, had we had not that experience of going through a similar genocidal experience, and those generations still around, the younger generation are much more vocal on that than possibly we were as a young boy, had little mixed of idealism and realism when we were making, and I could see our Prime Minister coming from a sort of a mixed or hybrid of a realistic motivation, but at the same time an idealistic motivation in looking at the Rohingyas. It was very obvious. So that's why, but in no way one would be able to say that we have left out the geopolitics altogether. I think we are better off by hosting geopolitically speaking, by hosting Rohingyas, because I think we had a very little option.
And Mr. Haque, as you know that PM is going to inaugurate the Rampal power plant, and we must
Jointly
with the Indian counterparts. And of course, the Rampal power plant is one of the most controversial plant in Bangladesh, given its risk towards the nature and everything. What do you think, like in this case, what could be the best way to deal with those risks, but at the same time continue the energy cooperation that we are having together?
good. I think the whole idea of energy security is not beyond debate globally. There has been environmentalists have been raising questions about use of coal and other non-renewable energy opposed to the renewable energy, but still in terms of cost, technology, development phases, every country uses a kind of a mixed. Bangladesh also, I've been following it and trying to make sure that it takes the environmental concern, but not only environmental concern, but other concerns also, including the question of energy security. And I see from that angle the Rampal power plant. I think it uses one of the finest technologies that's currently available in the market, and there has been a team coming from various UN agencies to help the government of Bangladesh to make sure that it doesn't becomes an environmental concern in future. I think it will eventually stand up to the standards that's put in place. If your energy policies are not correct, if it is not balanced, if it is not a multi-sourced kind of a process, then you may end up in a difficult situation. And keeping that, I think Bangladesh has taken a very right decisions to create a mixed source for its energy need.
Since our PM is going to visit India and going to have a discussion, there will be, of course, people-to-people connection issues would be coming. What we have done so far, good, and what we could have done better to ensure a very sustainable people-to-people connection.
In terms of encouraging, enhancing a realistic interaction between the people of the two countries. That's what the future is. They will continue to be our neighbor. We will continue to remain their neighbor. So we have to understand our neighbor better.
Yeah, I agree with you that we can't just one morning get up and take this piece of land and put it somewhere in Europe. And then we can have Schengen visa for all of us to roam around. We have to live here.
Absolutely.
And we have to live with them.
Absolutely.
And they have to live here and they have to live with them. Now, from that point of view, we have to also do business with them. And they have to do business with us as well. And we see the business is increasing, no doubt.
It's about $2 billion.
It's about $2 billion.
The last 2 years.
The last 2 years.
For the $1 billion.
But like we see there are some rules and regulations which are not so business friendly. Some of them are put forward by our country. Some of them are, of course, put forward and maintained by India. What do you think? What are the areas that we could work, and maybe this visit could also focus to eradicate some of these kind of barriers in order to ensure a very good business environment for both the countries?
I think there's a realization on the both sides that the current existing regime of doing business, investment and trade has reached to a saturation point, given the global regime that's going through radical changes, both for us and both for India with other countries. So that's why I think there is a decision which will be inked this time, which is comprehensive partnership for economic agreements, where they will look at all aspects. I think 4 or 5 aspects, the draft that I've seen. Naturally, trade and services, investments, and also joint kind of an initiative in third countries together. That's a new model that's coming up, that you go jointly and invest somewhere and have benefit shared. So hopefully within a very short period we'll have the SEPA, which is the abbreviation of it. And when the SEPA comes into force, you'll see some of the issues that you mentioned, and there certainly creates hurdles, barriers for for mutual trade and business and investment would be removed. But these are also sort of have to be built step by step. At one stage, it was very hostile, so we have put that into the past and move into much brighter economic collaboration. There's a huge investments coming from India to Bangladesh, which 10-15 years back we even couldn't think of. So that's something positive. We should be able to also invest in various initiatives in India. That's a possibility. Some of our companies like Pran is doing a very good business. There are other opportunities. It's a competitive market, but certainly we have competition need to play its part. But our business people are also maturing. So that's one thing. You have to always remember that India has 75 years of history. So their business people have a 75 years of experience, which we unfortunately don't have right now. But they are also maturing. They are also learning how to do business outside their own comfort zone. And I think SEPA would be a game changer in this aspect.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haque, for your patience and answering me for all these questions. I hope your current visit to Delhi would be very fruitful, and I look forward to seeing you back in Dhaka as well.
Thank you very much. I am also.